One of the things that's really interesting with a high capacity person is, and for myself as well, and Pedro, you might even relate to this, whatever sort of level we have in our mind that we should be working at, it can be very difficult to accept anything else. So it could be that we're just slowing down because of a myriad of things in life. And I don't mean slowing down like we're not working on it or we're not still performing at a level that we feel good about, but there can be this disconnect between, well, I should be performing at this level without acknowledging where we actually are in life. So one of the things I like to do is really help them understand where they're using their energy, what's taking time, what things might be taking up just like mental space that are just silly things that need to be delegated or removed from the list. And so they can free up a little bit of time and understand that, okay, some of this is unnecessary. We're going to get it out of the way because we also think we have to do everything, and everything on our list is super important and the same importance. And then let's look at what is your best performance level right now.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues, the podcast where we interview business owners on how they built their businesses and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is David Wynn, and I'm a business coach and the founder of Purple Circle, where we help business owners achieve their first 6-figure, 7-figure, and 8-figure year, all without sacrificing their quality of life. Before becoming a business coach and before founding Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7- and 8-figure coaching businesses and have been a consultant at several businesses doing over $100 million each, including some that are publicly listed and doing over $1 billion each. In every episode of the podcast, you're going to learn lessons that took our guests years to learn, and you'll be able to learn that in minutes. No matter if you're a new business owner or an established business owner, every episode is going to give you the clues in order to elevate your business.
Welcome to Success Leaves Clues podcast. I'm Pedro, and today I'm joined by Alyssa Gioscia, a certified executive coach, performance advisor, and speaker based in Austin, Texas. With over 16 years of experience, Alyssa leads her own firm, Alyssa Gioscia Performance Advisory, where she partners with purpose-driven leaders, entrepreneurs, and tech professionals to overcome barriers, prevent burnout, and drive high-impact results. She previously held leadership roles at CareerArc, including Director of Enterprise Development, and worked as an executive coach at Novus Global. Welcome to the show, Alyssa.
Thanks, Pedro. Hi.
Hi. Great to have you. Alyssa, I got to tell you something a little bit about me. I'm kind of a comic book nerd myself, so kind of love the first editions, the origin stories, you know? So let's rewind a bit. Okay, because every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, yeah, I guess this is what I'm doing now, right? So when was that for you, Alyssa?
So what you mentioned, CareerArc. I was working at CareerArc, and a friend of mine who is also a coach, he was asking me some questions about my job and what I liked and didn't like. And he said, was this your dream job? And I sort of giggled and said, no, but he asked me what it was and I couldn't answer that. So I started working with him because I thought that seems like something I would want to know. And so through my work with him, I realized a lot of my background had been in training and development. And I was really loving the results I was seeing from coaching. And I thought, well, I just want to do this. And so that's when I started working towards getting certified as a coach, and I've been doing it ever since. But it was really my own experience with coaching, and I continue to work, of course, with my own coaches, but I loved seeing the results, and I thought everyone needs to have this.
So you were, in a way, exposed when you were in corporate to coaching because they were like funding something like that, and you were like, this sounds cool, and you experienced it like firsthand then.
Yeah, I mean, and that was totally private. It was not through my company. This was just a friend reaching out, and I decided it was something I wanted for myself. So as somebody who is always kind of figuring out what's the next level, what's the next step, how do I get that promotion, or how do I grow my business, whatever it might be, I thought, well, working with somebody to help me do that makes sense. And I just loved it so much. And you know, we always talk about hindsight. I looked back and I thought, I've been leading women's groups. I've been doing training and development in my job. So it was a natural evolution for me, but based off of the results I was seeing.
Awesome. Okay. I want to talk about that evolution. Okay. Because for most coaches in the early days, it's almost like it starts almost like advice giving. I'm helping people. This is almost like a calling, right? To eventually realize, okay, I'm building a real business around this stuff. You know, this is actually driving revenue. So Can you walk me through that shift? Because previously, when we were talking, right, before the podcast, you launched in 2019. In 2023, you left corporate. So there's a lot happening, right? An
Yeah.
identity shift. Like, I'm testing waters here, but I'm still in corporate. Can you walk us through your journey there?
Yeah, of course. So after I decided, hey, I really love this, I want to go in this direction, I was doing client success at the time. So before I was director of enterprise development at CareerArc, I was director of client success. And that's a lot of talking to people, figuring out what they want and helping them find the best way to do it. And also figuring out 3 different ways to say something so that people understand and asking the right questions to dig in to what's under the surface. So to your point, I kind of saw I actually really have been doing this type of thing for a long time. I worked for a restaurant group that did training development. So it was a natural through line for me. This was just a more targeted version. So I was doing client success and about to finish my certification for coaching. And I realized I don't want client success to be what I do next. So I actually let my manager know at the time that I would be putting in my notice, which I didn't have something else lined up. So ill-advised, but I brought it up more in like hey, this is the direction I'm thinking about conversation. And so our CEO reached out and said, we would love to bring coaching into the company. So I then spent the next 2 years developing what a coaching program would look like with the CEO and then launching that within that particular company. And then I was just coaching within the organization. And it was really a great program. It was very successful. I loved it. And the company was going through a lot of the growing pains that most companies were at that time. So it was like, you know what, now seems like a good time to go out on my own. And because I had my business for several years at that point and had a client base, it just made sense. And I also was just kind of exhausted by corporate. So one of the things I like to work on with my clients too is making sure that they have a good values alignment, because I had for a time sort of been ignoring what my values were really wanting and saying and just kind of pushing through. And now I don't have to do that because I work for myself and I really like it.
But it sounds to me like it's like a slow process that you're like, it's not a leap of faith out of nowhere, right? To your own business. It's like gradually happening for you and you're being exposed and realize, okay, actually, this is what I really want. I don't want to do corporate anymore. Is that about what we're talking?
It was definitely like that for me. It was understanding what I wanted for my life, where my energy was, how I wanted to work with clients and control my schedule and all of those types of things over time. And it did evolve because my business built a little and then I got, and then my corporate would be doing this thing and then I could grow my business. So it was a little bit of give and take, but I have not looked back since I have left.
Awesome. Love that. Okay. Now, I know for most coaches, not saying your case, when we look back at the people we started serving, right, in our own practice, I'm a coach myself too. And when we look at right now, it tends to have an evolution for the
Yes.
ICP and who we serve. In the early days, sometimes we're like just trying to make ends meet. We're trying to make it happen, but eventually we sharpen the blade. We realize we help the best a certain kind of people, right? Certain people are also being attracted by us of who we are. And, so my question to you is like, could you give me like an understanding of who you started serving, the evolution, right? And who do you serve now, Alyssa?
That's such a great question, Pedro. I love that. And it absolutely has happened. So when I originally left corporate, because I had been in corporate and because I had been in tech, almost all of my clients were corporate tech professionals in, I would say, like middle manager level roles, even some who were earlier in their career and looking to kind of push their way up. So I was helping people with promotions and navigating corporate. And I realized after a while, I'm a bit far out from corporate and that's no longer sort of where I love to coach. So now the clients I work with are all, I refer to them as high capacity individuals, but people who are really interested in how they can evolve their performance so that they can always get that next one, but make sure that they're doing it in a really healthy way, because burnout is a real thing. And sometimes for those high capacity folks, I would put myself in that bucket too. We're so busy thinking about the next thing. We're not even celebrating the current thing that we're working on. And we can easily push ourselves into burnout because we have a very clear goal that we're trying to get to. So I really love working with people who are excited about how do I perform at my peak level without crashing and burning without having a health crisis, without burning out, without just rage quitting my job, whatever it might be. And so that has now evolved into more C-suite founders, entrepreneurs, or high level execs. And then I also have people in my client base who are artists or spiritual teachers who are also in that level of growth just outside of corporate. But it's more of the person and personality than it is where they are from like an age perspective or their job.
The person and the personality. In a way, I feel like they need to be coachable, right? They cannot have that mentality of solve this stuff for me or blaming others. They need to take ownership on their own stuff. I got that
Yes,
right?
absolutely. And of
Okay.
course, be excited about the discomfort and the work of coaching because I think anyone who has done coaching or is a coach knows that a lot of it is about what's uncomfortable for you right now. And not in a way where we're pushing through something that's not good for us, but just understanding that sometimes we can't control it or we don't know what's next. And there are still ways forward without that information.
Okay. Now let's do, if you don't mind, a little game of pretend here. I want to pretend to be your avatar, your ideal client profile. Okay. I'm one of those C suite founders or entrepreneurs, high level executive, high capacity individual. I want to evolve my performance, doing it in a healthy way, just like you described it to me. Okay. So I'm that guy. First of all, how would I be able to find you, Alyssa, marketing wise?
Well, I generally will direct people to my website, but the two ways that I have the most client flow are from referrals and then from doing podcasts, of course. But on my website, you can book an advisory call with me. And I have it set up where there's some questions to answer before you book, which I find really helpful because it gives the client some just quiet time, self reflection, tell me a little bit what's going on. I can read through what they've sent me and I think it lets us really jump off from a little bit of a deeper place, especially with somebody who I might be meeting for the first time. So if it's our first call, we can get a little bit further and then, however many times we talk before they end up being a client. But I like to just know where they are and what's going on for them, what's working, what's not working beforehand. And also I like to read the subtext because there's always something underneath what they're telling me that is giving me additional information.
Okay. So, still in the game of pretend, let's say I went through your website or was referred to work with you, or even better, I was listening to Success Leaves Clues
And you
podcast
heard
and
about
like, Lissa sounds cool. I want to reach out to her, right? So I do exactly that. I reach out to you and I'm like, hey, Lissa, how does it look like to work with you, right? We have that advisory call you mentioned. We can add a note there if you want to, or we can say there's alignment. Okay. Totally up to you. But what I would love to do is for you to give like an understanding, a little peek behind the curtain of how does it look like to work with you and your business. Is it like one on one? Is it like one too many? Just for me to wrap my head around how on board being on board it feels like it. Could you do that?
Absolutely. So I love one-on-one coaching. So I work with my clients all one-on-one and I do a retainer based model because I do not believe that my clients want to be pushed into a box or they want to be coached on a schedule. So because of the types of people they are, they need the flexibility to have my availability when it makes sense for them. So they have a retainer based model. Most of my clients do have a certain number of calls each month booked. And then I have a variety of different call times if they just need a quick alignment session, if they need 30 minutes to chat. And then they have asynchronous access so they can text me or they can just say, hey, I need a call. Can we chat? And I found that for my clients, they really like the flexibility to have availability as life is happening. So last week I had two people who had emergencies in their jobs and asked if they could just have a phone call. So on a random Tuesday or a random Thursday, we're chatting. So it's a really open flow setup for my clients. And I always do a deep dive with my clients when they originally get started. We define what we're going to be working on, let's say for the 3 months and then for 6 months. But I don't have a specific time frame for my clients. Most of them sign up for 6 to 12 months because they're usually working on larger projects. But I am loving the retainer based model for the flexibility. And I've gotten really great feedback from my clients. And this is a newer model that I've launched this year. So that's been actually quite fun.
Okay. So, I would love for you to give me like Well, first of all, potential outcomes, okay, of working with you. But what I'm really curious about is like if you can pinpoint a pattern in your clients of something that it's almost like an aha moment. And I understand each one to their own journey, right? But if you could like select something that you see happening from your clients, they're not aware that you made them realize through the process, what would that look like?
One of the things that's really interesting with a high capacity person is, and for myself as well, and Pedro, you might even relate to this, whatever sort of level we have in our mind that we should be working at, it can be very difficult to accept anything else. So it could be that we're just slowing down because of a myriad of things in life. And I don't mean slowing down like we're not working on it or we're not still performing at a level that we feel good about. But there can be this disconnect between, well, I should be performing at this level without acknowledging where we actually are in life. So one of the things I like to do is really help them understand where they're using their energy, what's taking time, what things might be taking up just like mental space that are just silly things that need to be delegated or removed from the list. And so they can free up a little bit of time and understand that, okay, some of this is unnecessary. We're going to get it out of the way because we also think we have to do everything, and everything on our list is super important and the same importance. And then let's look at what is your best performance level right now, because what you were doing 10 years ago is probably not what you're doing now. Life changes, physical energy changes, many things evolve. So what does it look like? And I think being able to sit with them in, again, the discomfort of it may not look like what it previously looked like, and helping them be okay with what it looks like now is a big one with clients. And then also prioritizing work and rest, because a lot of times we don't know how to rest. And I don't mean like getting pedicures and stuff. I mean like truly resting within your work so that you maintain the level of performance you want.
Dude, okay. You hit the nail in the head, at least for me, okay? Let me talk about a little bit about myself. So the thing is like I'm the podcast host here, but I'm also a business owner, right? And I worked in corporate here in Brazil, banking, and worked at a consulting firm, Ernest and Young, and all that. So the thing is, and I'm not sure if you realize with your clients, is like when I clocked out there, I really clocked out, right? But then I opened shop, I opened my own business, and then it's hard to turn the switch off, right? It's almost like, in a way, it's so weird because I have two kids, right? And sometimes I'm playing with them and I feel guilty about thinking about the business. So I'm not there like fully present. And sometimes I'm in my work and I'm thinking about them. So I'm also not fully present. So that balance, it's so hard to manage. Do you see that happening with your clients as well? Like not knowing how and when to turn the switch off, even then, even when they really are aware of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we all think that we can multitask really well. So one of the things is, I'm even working on this right now personally, is committing to single tasking. So to say, okay, I am going to spend 30 minutes with my children right now, and this is just their 30 minutes. And it's going to actually give my body a rest, give my brain a rest, fill my heart up, give me some joy. And so then when I go back to work and I'm fully focused on work, then I actually have some brain space to do the thing that I wanted to do. And so it's really looking at how do you want to prioritize those things, and knowing also that the 30 minutes away is, I think we think everything is going to be emergency. The 30 minutes away, nothing's going to happen during that time. Right? Like, I don't know. I'm not a brain surgeon, so I'd have life or death situations. If I respond to an email at 4 or 4:20, it doesn't matter. So there's a lot of stories we tell ourselves around what's happening with my business while I'm with my kids, what's happening with my kids while I'm with my business. So if we can learn to unplug some of those stories and understand what's actually true and decide when I'm with them, I'm with them. When I'm with my business, I'm with my business, it can really help. But oftentimes we are thinking we have to constantly be touching all the things to be effective, when if we're actually focused and present, we're more effective, even during that short amount of time.
Okay. Love that. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Now I have another question, right? Like comparing corporate world that I had and now business owner, sometimes I'm having too much fun working. Okay. And then my wife is listening on their side of the office, just like, is that really work? You're laughing, you're having, it sounds like you're having a blast.
Yeah.
But at the same time, time goes by, right? And I'm like working sometimes 11 hours, 10 hours. I shouldn't, but I do it. Okay. Sometimes it happens. So that's the thing. It drains you either way, right? Even if you're having fun or not having fun, obviously having fun better, right?
Better.
We get that. Okay. But at the same time, it's harder to set up those boundaries. Do you feel like your clients are also like sometimes spinning their wheels in a way and draining themselves, but at the end of the day, like they love what they do? It's just hard to have that balance, to set up that rhythm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's about boundary setting. That's about values alignment. So if you decide, okay, I'm going to work Monday through Friday and I'm going to make those 10-hour days, but I am truly going to take the entire weekend off, fine. Or do I need to put systems in place that would allow my business to run a little more smoothly without me so that I can clock out at 7 instead of being online at 9? Or what do I think is happening if I clock off at 7? I'm telling myself all these, let's say, bad things are going to happen, but actually it's fine. So sometimes even with clients, I'll say, I want you to log off at 5:30 every day and then tell me how many emergencies you had for the next week by doing that. Tell me what you missed by doing that. Just sometimes the systems are really the thing that needs to be shifted. And it's good that we're having fun and it's great that we're loving our business, but we also love spending time with our friends and our family and enjoying a nice meal and our physical fitness and health. So balancing those things is important. And that's why I like to do values alignment for me with clients, because if you have those three values, let's say family time, your business, and physical fitness, and you're doing no physical fitness, you're actually not taking care of yourself, and that will have repercussions. So how do we fix that?
My God, 100%. And it's like it seems like for example, me and my two boys, my two kids, like I make them promises and I keep them. But whenever I'm talking about self promises, when I'm designing contracts with myself, sometimes I just like I'm not gonna keep them. Like, for example, okay, I'm not taking sales calls on Fridays. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have that guy is like, yeah, I can do Fridays only, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, I can squeeze you in. You know, that type of thing that you end up doing. And then you're like breaking contracts with yourself. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
That's a
You're
big
hitting home
one.
here.
Yeah. So having your coach or having your advisor is huge for that because they help you with that accountability. But it's also understanding, what do I think again is going to happen if I say no to that client? So I also don't do client calls on Fridays. With my retainer model, I will take something if there is an emergency, but I don't do scheduled calls. That's my day for admin and just a mental break because, 3, 4, 5, 6 coaching calls in a day can be tiring. So that's my break day. But if I do say yes to something, the key really is that I'm conscientiously doing it. So if I had a client who had a hospital emergency, but they really needed some support, yes, I will take your call on Friday. But if 9 times out of 10, I'm honoring that decision for myself, that's a big one because most of the time, the first person we abandon is ourselves. And then we end up out of alignment and it's really exhausting. And we start to resent things and we're very tired. So that is really about, how do I maintain those things for myself? What else? Like if you block your calendar off and you say, okay, on Fridays I have an hour for reading, an hour for admin, you have it all blocked off. There's no room to say yes to a client, but you have to honor yourself as a client and a calendar the same way you would anything else that's on there, right? If I have a client call Thursday at 2, I don't say yes to something else. So can I do the same thing for myself?
Okay, got it. Now, I would love for us to shift gears for a second, okay? Because I know you just shifted something in the business in January. You mentioned that, right? Now, I'm curious where you're taking all this, Alyssa. Looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about,
Right now, I'm scaling within the new model, which I'm actually very excited about because the clients that I do have on it are really enjoying it and they're taking advantage of it in just the perfect way. I've had a couple of people say, like, aren't you afraid somebody's going to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm like, they can call, they won't get an answer, but I haven't had anybody who's had anything like that, right? They're using it in a really respectful way, but also very much using it to support them in the ways that they need. So I'm looking at scaling that. And then for me, just expanding the things that I'm doing, like podcasting, public speaking, that side of the business, because I really love working one-on-one. And in order to do that and do it well, especially in this model, that means having a limited number of clients. So it'll be filling my book up to capacity and then focus on external things like this for the fun of getting to teach and share the message and hope, that it's helpful for people.
Okay, cool. Now, whenever we're, building towards something new, always something we're refining, we're improving in the present. So what are you currently trying to improve or even tighten up in your business right now?
Yeah, great. For me right now, it's the CRM situation. I've avoided it for a really long time, and I have my spreadsheets and I have my tracking and I have my Trello boards, and so like I have the places where I'm tracking client flow for existing clients or biz dev flow and my network and everything. But my business mentor said, I think it's time we get you into a CRM because I'm actually at a point where there's a lot of things I'm doing manually that could be automated. And so as I expand, having that automation is going to be crucial, and doing it early, I think, will really be key in not having to spend a really long time and maybe even having some growing pains later, because it's like, oh, now I have 1,000 people I have to get into this thing and retag versus 80 people or 100 people. So that the CRM is that's my growing pain right now, is getting set up, learning it, and really utilizing it to the best of my ability to automate where I can.
I see a lot of people in the space losing themselves, right? For example, they sometimes people get it backwards, right? Like you mentioned, it's like people serving systems and not the other way around. When
Yeah.
we actually, that's supposedly to be able to help you, right? Not you having to do more manual work because you need to add a tag and now you need to, create this and that. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's a fine balance. Like some
Yeah,
people got into, deep rabbit holes there on CRMs. Okay.
for sure. And I
Awesome.
will say, when I started my business, I had way too big of a tech stack. I was like, I'm brand new. I need all these things, and I didn't need 80% of them. So now I tend to be a little slower in adopting things just to make sure, okay, yes, I actually need this now and it's worth the investment and it will help me. And I'm not just trying to set something up and wasting hours a day because I don't want to, that's not the job I want. I want to be talking to people, not running a CRM.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna jump on that boat because you mentioned early days and all that. And I'm not sure if you remember, but I am a comic book nerd, right? So would love to step into sci-fi territory here for a second. So
Sure.
let's pretend we have a time machine in front of us. Okay,
Mhm.
Alyssa. And you can go back in time when you, launched your business, which was 2019, and you can give yourself, past Alyssa, one piece of business advice you
Mm,
wish you knew back then that you know now. Okay. What would
mhm.
that be?
I would have told myself to take contract work, because when I was starting out, having a company that you're partnered with that sends clients your way, that takes some of the intensity of marketing and biz dev and operations and all the things off your plate, but allows you to practice your craft, is really great. I don't think we talk about that enough. There are a lot of cool places where you can do contract work. And for me, I think it would have been helpful to have, oh, I'm getting some hours under my belt. I'm learning. I have some exposure to different personality types, different age groups, different career paths, and that type of thing. So I would say be open to contract work in the early days and get your reps in.
It's almost like dating before marrying the first person, right? It's like test a little bit, make sure you actually like doing the thing, right? That's also sometimes we romanticize the fact of coaching, but getting that exposure, this is what it feels like it, right? That's great. I love that. I've
Yeah.
seen some coaches doing that with pro bono too, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So, okay, interesting. Awesome. Second stop. Okay.
Okay.
You
Yes.
can go back in time. You have that the entire time frame from 2019 to today, and you can select the moment in time that you felt things clicked for you. Like, when you feel so fulfilled in a way that you're like, this is why I started this. And I understand you may have more than several moments, right? But
Mhm.
the top of mind,
Yeah.
right? What moment would that look?
That I was most fulfilled. I had one client I was working with, and she messaged me and she said, I got the promotion, which came with a raise for her. And she was very excited. And when we had first started working together, she was code red. She was ready to quit. And we were able to help her work through like what was going on, why she felt like she wanted to quit, stabilize her at the job, because I never advise the code red quitting, with nothing else planned. And I'm not specifically a career coach. I'm sure your guests who are like truly career coach would have a whole lot of other advice in there. But working with her to help neutralize what was going on, get her into a good place, and then help her get a promotion, a raise it was very fun. And I love the excitement when my clients hit those points. They're not obviously my celebrations, but I get to celebrate with them and partner with them to do the work. It's pretty fun.
It's interesting, right? You mentioned you're not a like exactly a career coach, and I've spoken with people like in the executive coaching, advisory coaching, whatever that looks like. And sometimes the feeling I have is that they joined for a reason, which reminds me of a quote, right? Sell them what they want, give them what they need. For example, oh, I want to improve my bottom line. I want to have more time. But eventually, they stop sleeping in the couch, right?
That's
They
right.
they start having a life. Do you see that happening with your clients as well? Like sometimes they don't get it what coaching is all about, but
Yeah.
eventually they get the exposure and down the line they get the benefit from.
I think so. Especially if you're working with a coach short term at the beginning, I always tell my clients, we're just pulling weeds right now. We don't even really know what you want to work on yet, the big stuff. And I think they have to see some of those small wins before they start to really dream like, oh, well, I could run that marathon or write that book. But those little wins along the way, I think are crucial in building up the confidence to do some of those bigger things. And also to remember, there's no tie to the outcome. Like if you try it and it works, great. If you try it and it doesn't, that's also okay. What else do we want to try? So I think a lot of times we put too much meaning on the outcome and, let's try it. Who knows?
You know, I'm not sure if you agree with this, but sometimes I see coaches out there about the positioning and all that. It's sometimes I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the ideal client profile, right? And some coaches they market as like you're going to be a better version of yourself. You're going to be, whatever that looks like, and it's so abstract. Like
Mhm.
that person doesn't even know me. I am not sure about my own goals. Do you see like in the industry, in the coaching space, it's harder for the ICP sometimes to really get it, of what we're actually selling here as an outcome?
I think so. If you haven't coached before, you don't know what to even put to it. A lot of people are like, well, isn't this like therapy? And it's not, although I do think it's different lanes on the same highway because it is self-improvement. So you're explaining the difference. I think sometimes we can get steeped in coaching jargon because we know the language and we know what it means to do the work or things like that. But a random person who sees a post on LinkedIn may or may not know. So their exposure is a huge part of it. And also, I think us probably niching more than we do is helpful as well, because then you know how to speak to your person and then they can see themselves in it.
So they understand they belong in the room. Okay.
Yeah,
It's more about them than about us at the end of the day, right?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. Love that. Appreciate the insights. Now, if someone listening wants to connect with you or even follow your work, right? And we're going to have all the links in the description, by the way. But where can people find you best to connect with you?
My website or LinkedIn. You can DM me and connect there, or my website goes right to me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Alyssa, there were certain parts of the convo today that really stood out for me. Okay. I'm going to highlight them real quick.
Mhm.
Let's go back to the origin story, right? When we were talking about how that started, your journey started in the coaching space. And what really stood out to me was how natural and organic, it was for you. It was not like now you wake up a day and now I'm a coach and sayonara to everything in the past. And that's totally fine. But for you, it's different. You're like slowly getting, exposure and eventually launching your own business and eventually leaving corporate right in 2023. So cool to watch. I really like that because like it tells me you're in a slowly but steady track, right? That's what you want and different levels of exposure and all that. So really cool to watch. There's that. Something you also mentioned for yourself when we were discussing corporate is like you've been ignoring your own values in a way, right?
Mhm.
And that for you was not working anymore, and you decide to make a change. So that was pretty cool too.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, it's a leap of faith. It's betting in yourself, right? And I know it's scary. Okay. I'm right there with you, by the way.
Yeah.
I think entrepreneur, like the journey itself, the entrepreneur's journey, it's like so wrecking, exposes all your vulnerabilities
It
out
really
in
does.
the open. right? So it's like all your fears and, oh my God, they're not going to pay. Oh my God, they're not going to show up. Should I charge this much? Am I worth it? So it's so wild, especially in the early days. Okay. Now, also, you mentioned like your quote was, what's uncomfortable for you right now, right? That you ask your clients. And at the end of the day, I remember I'm probably going to butcher Alex Hermose's quote, which is something like, what you're seeking is in the work you're avoiding, right? It's like, that's where the magic happens. But we're so good at procrastinating, especially if we are business owners, because it's so easy to get busy, right? But we tend to know which lever to pull
Yes.
most of the time.
We
We're just
generally
avoiding
do.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you know
Now,
that you should be doing that you're not doing? Except not saying should, but like, what do you know is going to be the thing? Yeah.
exactly. And last but not least is take contract work, right? When you were giving yourself some piece of advice, I think we romanticize a lot, right? About stuff. It's sometimes we just need some exposure. Just put yourself out there, even if it's not optimal. Oh, it's not my business. Okay, do the coaching, feel like it, have an understanding if you really want to do this. So yeah, that's a great piece of business advice. Now, this is just my long-winded way of saying I appreciate what you do, Alyssa. That was very long. And I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. Okay? It was great having you on.
Thank you. Likewise.
That's it for this episode. This episode, as well as this podcast, was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help business owners elevate their business to 6, 7, and 8-figure years, all without burning out. If you're looking to grow your business, as well as get the time freedom that you are looking for, visit us at joinpurplecircle.com and see what we can do to help you and your business.